Good morning, Rabbi Sai. It's going to be morning taco when I start. Tomorrow's the last year here in Chicago. Shkoyach for everybody for coming out. I want to tell you first, a gewaldige maisa, because I was so tired and knocked out from the trip to New York, and I had to prepare a shiur and the whole thing, and I gave a shiur yesterday here in Chicago until the shiur started. It was probably half an hour late. I got home, and I wanted to edit a little bit for the shiur tonight and then do some of the there's a lot of cartoons and stuff. And then right before Shabbos, I go to get my suit, and I realized that all my suits are in the cleaners because I don't like to use the cleaners in Eretz Yisrael. So I after Pesach, I was a little bit upset that I was supposed to get this new suit from Ed Kinsbursky. He flew in for the Siyum to Eretz Yisrael, and he measured me, and he said it was going to come before Pesach. I was looking forward, and it showed up on Chol Hamoed, so I never got a chance to wear it. And then I realized, I don't have a suit, but I have Ed's suit. Going to the closet, and here it is. Rabbi said, you got to see the suit. It's one of a kind. It's an MDY suit. I don't know if you guys could see it on camera. Okay. It even has my name here with a Reb Gevaldik. I'm not going to show you. The back is, we're inside out this way here. You guys see? It's geschmack to do the daf, it says. Anyways, Baruch Hashem, it fits like a glove. One measuring, he measured many times and over. Baruch Hashem, it fits Gival. And I also have to show you the merch that Yaakov Ayal, he in charge of merch, MDY cufflinks to match the MDY. Kids are Akol Beseder. So Yishkoyach. Here's another guy I have HaKaras HaTov too. At the Seder, I used his wine, not only Reb Zalman's. Aben Eva Renner. L'chvei Rebelli. I was in Toronto over Pesach and unfortunately missed all the dapim over Pesach. He's not the only one. I just spoke to some people here in the room. Missed 6 daf, 7 daf. I was also speaking to Benji's brother. What's your name? Eitan. He said the reason why he fell off the bandwagon, he started Shas and he was doing well, and he missed a bunch of daf, and then he got discouraged. And this is what we talk about all the time, over and over. People missed many dapim over Pesach. It's just natural. With all the traveling and all the working and all the cleaning. 8 daf in total. Inspired by how you once secretly told someone that you learned 60 blot on the plane, I made a cheshbon that the drive back to Lakewood is around 9 hours, and I'll see what I can do on the trip. If it works out, I can secretly tell you about it as well. I downloaded all 8 daf plus that day's daf, now 9 daf. As I pulled out of my driveway, I started the first of the missed shiurim and just went straight through all 9 blot. As I was finishing the 9th blot, it was time for the live shiur, so I hopped onto that one as well. I wore headphones so no passengers were harmed during this experiment. I don't think that I've ever learned so many hours b'Ritzifus, and thanks to your shiur at 1.5 speed, I can tell you that it was definitely a first, learning 10 blot in a row. I also spoke to my stepbrother, Ari Krishna, who watches the shiur every single day from his couch here in Chicago. He's never once came to a live shiur. Shkoyach Ari. He told me that he also did on the way back from Orlando, I think it was 6 or 7 daf straight, maybe more, maybe 8, I think he might have said. Okay. By Yosef Mizrahi, I attended the beautiful shiur in Brooklyn tonight, and Mamish felt us go to another level in singing Achenu. I've been following your shiurim since Shabbos, and you really helped me get through the difficult COVID year with the Masechta Shabbos in my head at the end. I was in tears, as that was the lifelong dream for me, to be able to finish it. It was my first siyum in 13 years. I had come to see you in person tonight. It was on an otherworldly experience, outer-worldly experience, you probably want to say. It was an honor to be part of. I also want to apologize for something. When you were mentioning tonight about the Chalitza shoe, I just come from... Yeah, so basically what happened was, I said, is Yaakov Ayal, the guy that does the merch, is he in the house? Because he did a lot of work for the Siyum, he made those figures and everything. And a guy goes like this, and I thought it was him. I said, here he is, but it was somebody else. He thought I was embarrassed by that. He apologized. No, don't worry about it. And his dream to come true, to greet you, Shalom Aleichem, but I guess the awkward moment, Oli Nachas and blessing, Baruch Hashem, one of your thousands, Yosef Mizrahi, Shkoyach, Ravi Siegelstein. I witnessed the true Kiddush Hashem Kiddush Shem Shamayim last night, and you should know about it. I looked around the room, and I maybe knew 5 people personally, yet there were Ashkenazi, Sephardi, Litvish, Lubavitchers, Chassidim, Misnagdim, old, young, long beards, sphere beards, any kind of Jews represented by SLC, in SLC, Kol Eliyahu last night. You have made some ordinary people very special, and to get to see the ones that are behind all you do is amazing. On the videos, we only hear about Yossi Kleiber, Anakash, Sal Gads, and Uncle Phil. Yet last night, I got to see them in person. You made learning in the Achdus of learning very special. As another token Lubavitcher, I want you to know something that was on my mind going home last night. What better day to have a shiur, and then Chof Ches Nisan, about 30 years ago, the Lubavitcher Rebbe came out to Chassidim and demanded to further and push exponentially harder to bring Mashiach. His famous words were, Ich lozich zu euch, tut alles was wenn kennt to bring in Mashiach. I give it over to you, do everything you can to bring Mashiach. My humble opinion, you're doing just that, bringing Achdus, Shkoyach, through learning Hashem's Torah. Yel Mechael Choyel Adbias Goyel Tzedek. You know those words, Reb Zalman? The famous words. Rabbi Isai, here's a sad thing. I don't know if you have this on the computer. Hill Boyer just sent this to me. I don't have a name. My father's best friend, Baruch Dayanemes, had a heart attack today and didn't make it. This is his last picture. It's a picture of me and him at the Siyum. It's very sad. I don't know his name. His neshama should have an aliyah. And he wrote to me that he was very proud of this picture, and he's showing everybody the picture, showing it. Very young guy. I don't know. He looks like maybe 60. I don't know if even that. Unbelievable. Okay. Do you see? You have the computer. Somebody has the computer. It's on the screen. Okay. The Koil sponsor this month is by Anonymous from Lakewood, Lzchus Shiduchim for his family. Parnasah by the Lock and Lebovic families, Lakewood, New Jersey, because Torah is the best segulah. Parnasah Chodesh Nisan, sponsored by Yoli. Dishmas Doiv. Pנחס ben Moshe Olav Shalom, Lzchus Rochama Froomah Bazdoy Pנחs, Lzchus Sרגא ben Avraham Levi. Ahron Fraiman, Lzchus parnasah siyata dishmaya, continue Hatzlacha to Eli Yishkoyach. I think today's his last day for that sponsorship. Thank you. Parnasah Chodesh, Zechus to Ahron's Hatzlacha, and to you, the magid, and the video editor of Hatzlacha and continuation. I'm missing a shiur. Lzchus of Yitzchak ben Benimin. Parnasah Chodesh, anonymously. Lzchus Chai ben Bas Yosef. Parnasah Chodesh, anonymously. As HaKaras HaTov to Hashem and as Zechus for continued health and bracha. I guess it's cheaper to do a chodesh than a day. And here's one guy sponsoring for the day. Rebelli and family, all the guys involved in MDY and families. Hatzlacha, Yishkoyach for all the sponsors. And here we go. Again, I have to be magdim. The second half of today's shiur is adult material, I should say. If you're Hasidish, and certain people told me specifically they won't allow their children to learn this, so we respect that. I just have to give a warning to the parents, and obviously, okay, fine. We'll see what happens. Says the Gemara. Just it happens to be that the adults love to hear that as well, and there's a lot of, they go through the whole shiur. I say it b'daf because sometimes it doesn't even happen, but I want people to watch from beginning to end. Says the Gemara. We're 5 lines from the bottom. Daf Nun Daled Amud Beis. Let's just say it balpeh. It's kedai to, if you have YouTube, if you're in the room now, it's kedai to see the chart. It looks very complicated. It's probably the chart with the most characters on it. There are actually some new characters on it. And it was done by our artist, Yoshi. Usually the charts are done by myself. But the actual artist who created these characters, I asked him, because I was in New York and traveling, I asked him if he could do it for me. So he did most of it, and I had to edit it a little bit. And it's L'Refuas, his daughter, who's going through a heart procedure, a young kid, I forgot, like maybe 6-7 years old. Okay, so on chart 1, you see, basically what we're trying to do here is that this guy, and I mentioned this on Friday, obviously this case never happened and never will happen, but it's halacha, and we want to know what would happen in this unbelievable circumstance. And that is that a guy marries a woman, and then he marries that woman's sister, thinking that his wife died. You're not allowed to marry your wife's sister, your sister-in-law, if your wife is alive. But her sister you could marry after your wife dies. Turns out the wife never died. Then he found out that his second wife died, so he marries her sister. Now, they're not all sisters because they shared a father, then they share a mother, then they share a father, then they share a mother. So it's one of these cases. He married 5 women, and it turns out that he's mutter in number 1, number 3, and number 5, because the ones in the middle, the ones that connect, they're sisters of his wife, and they're all sisters of his wife, which the Kiddushin is never typhus. If you see, I feel bad for Dr. Yigal, he's here. You see, this is what the chart looks like. Oh, you have it over there. Give on. Okay, cool. So let's go through the chart real carefully over here. You have a guy on the bottom, Reuven, is a Baldman brother, and he married, I don't know, he calls her Malka. We know her as Rachel throughout. Now, Malka's sister, now what he did was, the artist, if you look closely, he mixed characters that we already are familiar with. You could see that Malka's sister is semi-Yerushalmi, semi-five-towner. You see, she's wearing Yerushalmi clothing and she has the cell phone in her tichel, but she went shopping in America. Interesting. And then he did the same thing to the center woman, who's Bat Ayin. You could see her mother on top, Bat Ayin lady, but she's like a mix of 5-town / Bat Ayin. She's wearing sandals, but she went shopping. Very cool lady. Fine. But the point is that when Reuven married Malka, that's a good marriage. What's not a good marriage is what happened right after that. Woman number 2 is woman number 1's sister. And you cannot marry sisters. And if you try to marry sisters, the Kiddushin is not typhus. So number 2, in this case, is going to be out of the picture. Then he went ahead and married woman number 3. That's a mix of, over here it's called Sarah, and it's a Shlishis. You could just see, I changed the arrows a little bit, but you could see that here the plumber from Munsey's on top. He had 2 daughters. So these 2 daughters are sisters from the father. Bat Ayin lady also had 2 daughters. One of them happens to be with the plumber. So these are sisters from the mother. The dentist from the 5 towns, they call him Chetzron over here. He also had 2 daughters. They're sisters from the father. Mazal had 2 daughters that are sisters from the mother, from her. And finally, Abisul. The point of this, it's a very simple case. You could take the last 2 women out of it. The Rishonim talk about it. The point of the case is that he, by mistake, married all 5, not knowing that they're all alive. And because they're all alive, the second woman and the 4th woman could never be married to him. And therefore, 1, 3, and 5 are his genuine wives. And if he dies, you have to do a chalitza or yibum to one of those 3, 1, 3, and 5. And if we go to chart number 2, you just see that he married the second woman. Chart number 3, he married the 3rd woman. And you see what he did, the artist. He blacked them out. He changed their color to dark. That shows that they died, or at least he thought they died. And you keep on going to chart number 4, 5. Basically, chart number 6, it says, you see little Shimon on the side. He's the Yavam. He actually resembles a guy from Chicago who's one of Benji Israel's best friends. We're not going to say his name because, well, actually he's alive in this picture. So his name is Avi Kamyansky. And you see Shimon, he is mutter to 5, 3, and 1. I didn't do the ayah to 1, but he's usher to woman, 2 and 4, very good. Why? Because they happen to be sisters, 2, 1, and 3. Very, very simple case, just a lot of characters, and it looks very confusing. Let me show you real quickly what it looks like in my Gemara. So maybe you'll appreciate this art.
Everything's down, guys. Sorry. 1 second.
What's down?
On YouTube as well.
We're down on YouTube. Okay. This is what it looks like. So this one right over here.
YouTube, no Zoom.
No Zoom. So how are you on if there's no YouTube and no Zoom? All right. It's something with the signal, something with the American Wi-Fi doesn't work as well as in Israel. All right, so now let's see it inside. V'hadasnan. We're 5 lines from the bottom. Omer loy meisi ishtecha. V'nosa choisa. Oops, I gotta go get out of this Zoom thing. Okay, here we go. They tell a guy, your wife died, v'nosa choisa, so he decides to marry the sister-in-law, because she's mutter now after his wife is dead, me'avia. They are sisters from a father. Meisa v'nosa choisa. Let me just go, I could go through this maybe if I'm...
Please be sure to say the sheet number because it's not on Zoom anymore.
Okay. So they said your wife died, sheet number 2, and he goes ahead and he marries woman number 2. So she dies in sheet number 3. So he goes ahead and he marries woman number 3, which is a sister to 2, through the mother, through Bat Ayin. The 2 pink lines show you. Okay. It even says between them, Achayois Me'em. Great. It sounds, the wording is confusing. The case is very simple. Mesa, this number 3 died, and that's sheet number 4, and he went and he married woman number 4, and she happens to be a sister. No, that doesn't sound good. I'm off here. No, mutter, Mesa, that's it. Mesa, the 4th one died, and he married Achoisa Me'ima, Mazal's 2 daughters, our sisters. Mutter b'rishayna u'b'shlishis b'chamishis, we explained that. He's mutter to woman number 1, 3, and 5. U'payter serisayim, and since woman 1, let's go back here. Now, sheet number 6, you see that they're all alive. They happen to be all alive. It was a mistake, big boo-boo mistake. So he's married to woman 1, 3, and 5. I could have highlighted them. Maybe Yosef will do it for you. 1, 3, and 5, the outer ones and the center one. And now those 3 happen to be Reuven's wives. Now if Reuven goes bye-bye, they fall, all 3 of them fall liyibum to Shimon. And Shimon must do something, either yibum or chalitza. 1 chalitza to woman 1, 3, and 5 is enough for all 3. Now, the next case, in case number 7, is as follows. It's the same thing. Let's say, says the Gemara, that woman number 1 actually died. His original wife died. So, who became his real wife now? Woman number 2. So now you just shift everything over. Woman number 3, he's not allowed to be married to, because she's a sister to number 2, which is a real wife. Woman number 4, he's allowed to be married to, but not to woman number 5. So Memela 2 and 4 is okay. Oy vey, I messed it up. I wrote Asr. It has to be Mutter. 7 is messed up. Yeah, here. No, sorry. Here you go. Mutter. You see, that one is good. And screen number 8. 8 is good. 7 is no good. And what it should say is that 5 and the center one, 3, are usher. Okay. We get the idea. But what's the point of this whole Gemara? We brought this giant case, and that's enough of the cartoons for today. The rest are just drushes and psukim for all of Amud Aleph. Alma achoisoi ishtoi beiminoav beiminaim asuros. If 2 sisters, 1 sister ruins it for the other sister, that we see specifically from this case, we see that, let's say, specifically in this case, but let's say in the original case, woman number 2, if she was allowed to be married to Reuven, she would ask her the other one. Bekitzer, you see that sisters, doesn't matter if they're from a father or a mother, they're usher to you. Minalan. How do I know this? So this whole case was just to get to here. How do I know that a sister could be a sister even if they only share a mother and they do not share a father? Yalav ma'achaisai. From a man's sister, you're not allowed to have relations with your own sister. So too, you can't marry a woman whose sister is married to you already, and they only share a mother. Because just like you're not allowed to have relations with your own sister, but she's only a sister through a mother, you don't share a father with her, she's also so do in this case. Says the Gemara, that's why do you decide to learn from your sister? Yes, they share the same name, Achois Isha, but Achois and Achois Isha are different. Learn from your own aunt. What's considered an aunt only when the aunt is your father's sister through a father, not through a mother. It's only when she shares a father with your father, not when she shares a mother with your father. Says the Gemara, it makes more sense that you should choose your own sister to learn from. You are on a closer level to your sister. Learn from your aunt. They share a similarity. It's through kiddushin. Now, your sister-in-law is through kiddushin. You know what? Let's drop these two. We'll learn from somewhere else. From your sister-in-law, your brother's wife. The whole Yevamos is based on this Eshesach, right? That's what a Yevama is. She's your brother's wife. You're not allowed to marry your sister-in-law unless the brother dies without children. So let's learn from her that what? That a sister, your wife's sister is usher even if she's only your wife's sister through a mother, not through a father. Now, Eishes Ach, it doesn't matter if it's a brother from your mother or a brother from your father, you're not allowed to marry your sister-in-law. If you're a brother from your mother, you only share with that brother and mother, and he has a wife called a sister-in-law, you're not allowed to marry her. And there's no pircha to that. How do you know that your sister-in-law, which is your she married your brother, but he's not a full brother. He's only a brother through the mother. How do you know she's asur? Who told you that? It says in the pasuk. Let's see if anybody recognizes this pasuk. Ervas Eishes Achicha Loy Sigale. This week's parasha. And as a matter of fact, most of the psukim in this daf, next daf, all from this week's parasha, next week's parasha. And as the Vilna Gaon says, anytime you learn Gemara and there's a pasuk from that week's parasha, it's a hug from Hashem. It's like a simon. Beiminoav, beiminoav. Atoimer. Now, who told you? Who told you it's beiminoav, beiminoav? Eres eishes achicha. So the Gemara is going to explain. Atoimer, beiminoav, beiminoav. This is what we call a Gemara of drashas. Some people love it, but they only represent 2% of society. And we got to do it. It's part of the Gemara. You know, there's people that hate charts in Yevamos. I found there's the mathematical kind of guys. They don't like charts. They have it all figured out. The brother, mother, sister. You can't confuse them. They know. Yeah. So those guys probably love drushes also. Vidinu chiyav kav chiyav ba'choisai. There's your own sister. You're chayiv even if she's your sister, if you only share a mother. Who told you to learn it that way? Maybe you learn a different way. Again, we're going back to the aunt. Aunt is only from a father, not from a mother. Let's see what it's more similar to. Let's learn relatives that are on a closer level to you. She is only related to you through the father. It's one generation up. Things that we already learned, discussed. Sister just is there. Nobody. She happens to be your sister. Talmud loymar. Now, for this we need a little bit of a chart. You don't need, but it's kedai to see. In Parshas Achrimos. Lzchus, pasuk Zayt. Well, I said it's this week's parasha, but in Eretz Yisrael, it's last week's parasha. Ervas, look at this pasuk. Ervas eishes achicha loy segalei. Ervas achicha hi. It says the word achicha twice, and that means that there's an extra word here. So the Gemara says, Talmud lo yomer ervas achicha hi. Beimin ha'av, beimin ha'em. This extra word tells me your brother. It doesn't matter how she married your brother, if it's your brother from a father, brother from a mother. The extra achicha tells me all brothers. Veima idividi beishes ach min ha'av. Well, we could say no. Maybe the pasuk is coming to tell us a different chiddush. They happen to be brothers from a father. Chada. So why does the Torah have to say 2 times achicha? Chada yesh labanim b'chaye bala. V'chada ein labanim b'chaye bala. One is telling me that she has children already, and you're not allowed to marry. V'chada ein labanim b'chaye bala. And the second one is to tell me that she doesn't have children when the husband. In other words, the brother didn't have children. That I don't need, because as we learned yesterday from the pasuk Eshes Achiv Nidahi, from the word Nida, what? The Gemara asked, what, all sister-in-laws are Nidas forever? That doesn't make any sense. Obviously he's telling you this drasha. Okay. Maybe again, these 2 limudim we have in the pasuk. Erves Eshes Achicha, Lezigali. Erves Achicha, 2 times it says Achicha, but maybe, so the Gemara wants to say, one is a brother from a father, one is a brother from a mother. The Gemara says, no. Who forced you? Maybe they're both from a father. Chada desh labanim b'chaye bala, v'chada yesh labanim lacha misas baila. Yesh labanim lacha misas baila, after the husband died, Lzchus kra. B'dor rachmana she'ein labanim muteres, ha'ish labanim asura. If the Torah tells me that you're allowed to marry her, you're supposed to marry her, your sister-in-law, if her husband died without children, meaning that if she has sons from him, the brother, she's usher to you. Says the Gemara, no, who forced you? Maybe if she doesn't have children, she can marry anybody. She's usher to the world, and mutter to the yavam only. Yesh labanim. In other words, the Gemara is going through every possible way to learn the pasuk. Who told you that Yibum, you are usher to your sister-in-law? Yes, the Torah said that if the brother dies without children, you have a mitzvah to marry her. But maybe the Torah meant that you were always allowed to marry her. But in this case, you're the only one that's allowed to marry her. But if she has a son from your brother, the whole world can marry her, including you. Who told you to learn the pasuk that it's also for you to marry her? Says Gemara, inami, or I could say the pasuk means something else. Ein labanim mitzvah, yesh labanim reshus. That also makes a lot of sense, no? Maybe the Torah is telling me this is a special mitzvah of Yibum. That's when the brother died without children. Let's say the brother died with five children. You can marry her, you just don't get a mitzvah. Who told you it's usher? Again, another question. A third question. Inami ein labanim in yesh labanim loy. The most you're going to get out of this pasuk is that maybe you're over on a asay, but not a karas. Who said that it's karas? Therefore, I need the pasuk to tell me that there is karas. And then I don't have this pasuk to darshan that Eishasach comes from relationship that's a brother that's just from a mother. Again, I'm trying to use one of these red achichas to teach me that a sister-in-law comes from a brother, your brother, but you only share a mother. Mar says, how do you know? Maybe I use this achicha to tell me that there's an Isser Karas, that it's also to marry a sister-in-law. You would think that you're allowed to marry a sister-in-law. It's a special mitzvah. It's not a mitzvah. She has children. Does it? Different. I need to tell you that you're always also to marry a sister-in-law. But I can't learn from this pasuk that a sister-in-law means from a mother. Maybe a sister-in-law is only from a father. Because of Krachirina, the Gemara, gives in. You're right. All the questions are great. So there's another pasuk. Erves Achiv Gila. A third pasuk that says the word brother, and that's certainly extra. And from there I learn any kind of brother, even a brother that you only share a mother. Beima ishzach min aim, beishzach min av. Ma ishzach min av. Okay. The Gemara asks another question. Ma ishzach min av lachar misas bail shario, av ishzach min aim lachar misas bail shario. If you're telling me that a sister-in-law is also to you, even if it means that your brother is not a true brother from a father, but a true brother from a mother. So maybe you're allowed to be Mekayim mitzvahs yibum on such a brother. We know, right? This is one of the first things we learned in Yevamos, that the mitzvah of yibum is brothers from a father, like Yaakov Avinu. All his sons were from the father. But if you're going to compare a brother from a mother to a brother from a father, so compare it all the way, even for yibum. Amakra, this is another drasha. Let me ask you a question, Rabbi Yisai. I know you're going to answer, but how do you know this answer? There's a parsha of arayis, right? We had 16 arayis, 25 arayis, your sister, this, that, mother. If a person, crazy situation, in one helem, in one thought, he thought they're all mutter. He didn't know. He thought he was shregeg on all of them. He went from a sister to his mother to this, all 15. And then he finds out, how many karbanas does he have to bring? One on all 15 or 15? So I'll ask you, it doesn't make sense what you're saying. We learned a bunch of times in this Masechta that all the arayis are bunched into one group. We even had it the other day. And all the halachas apply to everything. It's one group. So it should be one isser. What?
15 ants.
So what? It's one helem. One helem. If you have one awareness, helem means awareness. If you have one awareness on Shabbos and you do bayer and again bayer, you only chayav once. Because one awareness, you didn't know that this bayer is also. Nobody told you it has to be the three things. You can't do it with the kli, you can't do it for later on. You didn't know. You thought you know the halacha. You only chayav once. So if all the arayis are bunched into one thing, how much should you be chayav? So the Gemara tells us, from all the arayis, the Torah repeats itself again and says, your own sister, you chayav karas. Why? Why did the Torah have to repeat it? We know already by Nida, we learned yesterday. We learned all the arayis from Nida. And Nida is karas. So why did the Torah repeat itself? 1 out of the 15. Like the Rabbi Yochanan, to teach us Rabbi Yochanan's halacha. Rabbi Yochanan, shemasak kulam, bela machas. If you were over in all the arayis in one awareness, chayav al kolachas v'achas. I need a chiddush. You wouldn't know it by yourself. It makes sense what you're saying. Logically, you should be chayav on each one. But because they're all bunched together, I would think you only chayav one carbon for all 15. Or however many there are. Says Gemara, Rabbi Yitzchak argues. He says all these arayis were in one bunch. And why does the Torah repeat itself and say you're chayiv kars if you're with your sister? There's a very interesting concept. Let's jump to Rashi for a second. He says it beautifully. It's smack in the middle of the page. The hisru by malkus and eloika. The Torah says that if somebody's with his own sister, he's chayiv karas. He doesn't get a punishment. Hashem will take care of him. It's a big punishment. Hashem will take care of him. What if the Edom decided to be tzaddikim? And they went over and they warned him, hey, if you're going to be with your sister, we're going to give you malchus. But it doesn't say in the Torah you get malchus. The Torah says you get karas. You don't get malchus. The lav shenitin lahazaras karasu. The Torah gave us a lav to warn us on the karas. There's a double parsha, the whole whatever. The point is, the Torah said you get karas, you don't get malchus. And even if the Edom decided to warn him about malchus, and typically you could get malchus for something like that, no, you don't get it. How does he learn that? The Lehava says, Rashi, you have to warn somebody, the Torah has to warn, and the Torah didn't warn about it. Okay, says Gemara, so therefore, we're back to the original question. How does he learn, Rabbi Yitzchak, that if a person was with 15 arayis in a row, in one awareness, he has to bring 15 korbanos? Forget about karas. HaKadosh Baruch Hu could only kill him once. I mean, he could do it every once, but a person dies once. His kids will die early once. How could you give a guy karas 15 times? But I'm saying in in Shaygig. Shaygig, you should bring a carbon for every time he's a Shaygig. But how does he know it from? He already used it up to say that you don't give the guy Malchus if he was warned. Nafkalei mivela isha benidas tumasa lechayva kol isha v'isha. Okay? Why? There's a klal, Rashi says, Davashay beklal v'yatsa min ha-klal loy l'lamed ha'atzmi yatsa ela l'lamed ha-klal kula yatsa. Nida, why did the Torah specify Dafka Nida? To teach us this idea that you chayav on each and every woman. Fine. Next sugya. So if we know that there's chorus for every single arayas, then why does the Torah specify by a ant aririm yihu that he'll die childless? Yeah, chorus is not a joke. Aririm yihu lomali. Look at the Rabbah. The Rabbah Rami, Rabbah asks a contradiction. Ksiv, aririm yihu, ksiv aririm yamusu. So on the one hand it says they're going to die childless. On the other hand it says that their children are going to die. Which one is it? Are they never going to have children? Or are they going to have children and the children will die? Okay, tzad. So pshat is, yeshli banim kaivram. If Rahman Aslan, this person is over on Kares, let's say he's with a nida, it's chayv Kares, he should better do tshuva quickly, because if he has children, he will loyalenu bury them. Ein loy banim, and if he doesn't have children, he won't have children. Hashem punish him, he won't have children. I was thinking when I was learning this, don't go around thinking, that guy doesn't have children, maybe he was a chayv Kares. Some of the G'dayla Adar that lived in the past generation didn't have children. A lot of big G'daylim didn't have children. HaKetzad, yesh lebanim, kayvim. Ein lebanim, oil charir. Vitzich lemichtav arim yiu, vitzich lemichtav arim yimusu. I need to tell you both. The Yikaz Rachman arim yiu, havamina ad chetei, that if a person sinned as he had children, the punishment, and the Gemara always talks about it, how, imhu chata ma, what did the children sin? Okay. That's a different sugya. But up until Ischet, then the children will die. The guy is a new person after the chet. So just because he had children, he sinned in 1990, and then he had a child in 2022, so that child is going to die? Yeah. Because if it only said Arimi Musa, I think from that point on he's a Rasha, let's say, if he didn't do tshuva. So from that point on, if he has a child, the child is liable to die. But what? He already had a child. The child is alive and well, and then he sinned. So that child is going to die? Yes. All right. Now we're going into that nitty-gritty sugya. Hara the chayvid lavin minola. How do you know? So yesterday we discussed the beginning of the act is considered a full bia for all halachas, to be over the Isser, and also we said even for Yibum to be kind of the Yevama. You don't need a full act, beginning act. Says the Gemara, how do you know that if somebody is a chiyuv lav? What's a chiyuv lav? A mamzeres. You're not allowed to marry a mamzeres. So how do you know one moment of the act is you're already over? How do you know? We're going to see soon a shifcha charufa. So Rashi says, what's a good case of a lav? A shifcha. Forget about a charufa. We'll talk about what charufa means. A slave. Being with a slave for a moment. The beginning of the act. So the Gemara is shichva zera. So shichva zera means the zera. When's that? That's at the end of the act. So the Torah says shichva zera gabi shifcha charufa. And we'll see that that's the only thing really in the Torah that says, when are you over on shivcha harufa? What's shivcha harufa? Here, Pasuk says, we're talking about a Jewish slave. His master gives him a wife. Who's this wife? A shivcha, a non-Jewish slave. I mean, now she has mitzvahs like a woman. You know, that whole thing. The point is that if he's engaged, he's arusa to this shifcha, I mean, it's a pretty sad story. The guy stole, he didn't have money to pay back, they sell him, and now he's with a goya, with a shifcha. That's now a slave, nebuch. Okay. So, the Torah tells us that if somebody else has relations with this shifcha, you're only over at the end of the act, not the beginning of the act. That's the only erva that we're going to see such a thing, such a concept. A person does a half act, not over. Interesting. Says the Gemara, Michlal d'chayv elavim ba'ara. Since the Torah said it specifically by shivcha harufa, that means all other chayv elavim, mamzeres, a regular shivcha, is the beginning of the act. Yichayv. Says the Gemara, Adarabba. Midigal rachmana hara b'chayv krisos, Michlal d'chayv elavim b'gmar b'ya. Fakir. If the Torah says that chayv krisos, the worst of the worst, real bad stuff, anida, you're chayiv even bara. That means because they're so severe. Imagine, Eishesish, Torah says, Eishesish is even the beginning of the act. Okay, so from that I'll say that everything else that's less than Eishesish, but Eishesish is not a good example. Krisos, Nida. Because they're not as severe, you have to go further. That's to be at the end of the act. On Ravashi, so Rashi says beautiful. Why did the Torah say that shifcha charufa has to be the end of the act? You're telling me all chayv lavim is the end of the act. So the Torah should have just been quiet completely, and I would have known all chayv lavim, including shifcha charufa, is the end of the act. Why did the Torah specify by shifcha charufa end of the act? To tell me only her is the end of the act, and all other chayv lavim is even the beginning of the act. Now the Gemara just goes through drushes again. So how do I know that the beginning of the act is also by a kohen? Let's say a kohen marries a divorcee, a kohen gadol marries an almana. Ase kicha kicha, not the famous one from Kiddushin, but kicha kicha says yikach the chayve. Fine, this is Gzeir Shava. Gzeir Shava, you don't argue with Gzeir Shavas. The chayve asay minalan. So this I had to do this again. I couldn't even find it. Motzei Shabbos. But it says in the pasuk in Dvarim, Kisese, it says, "Loit tisayv adoimi ki yochichahu." Don't despise an adoimi; he's your brother. Loit tisayv mitzri. Don't despise an Egyptian. Ki gera yisab aretzoy. You were a guest there. And then it says in pasuk Tes, "Banim asher yivadu lahem dor shlishi yavelem." After 3 generations, you could marry them. What is that? That's an asay. It's a positive commandment. You could marry them, meaning that if it's less than 3, it's asur. What do we call that? It's a isur asay, not a lav. The Torah doesn't say don't marry a mitzri. The Torah says do marry a mitzri after the 3rd generation. So if you marry a mitzri before the 3rd generation, you're over on this asay. How do I know that you're over even behara, the beginning? Asya, bia, it says yavai, lashon of liyavai mamzer, so we learn from there. Sponsored by Moshe Horn in honor of Jolly Joe Kraus and family, anonymously, Lzchus, Moshe Yakov, Ben Shoshana, Baruchnis, and Gashmias. Yevamos l'shuk b'nolan. How do you know that if you're with a Yevama and you only started the act, you're over? Elam says Gemara, what do you mean? Time out. What is the Yevama? If it's a lav, we already said. If it's an asay, we already said. So why are you talking about a Yevama? What's the big deal about a Yevama? Oh, what I meant to say is not that you're with a Yevama that's somebody else's Yevama. I'm talking about you, the Yavam. When are you kind of her? When does she become your wife fully? After hara, the beginning of the act. How do I know that? I said bia. Not bia like we're talking now, bia. Bia, the word yavai, ba. Isha lebala ben alan. In Kiddushin, first Mishnah says, you kind of woman, kesef shtar bia. What does bia mean? It means even hara. Ase kicha. So we learn the word kikach, not over there, kichim is the Ephraim, a different one. Omar Rav. Lama li the cause of Rachmana shechva zera b'shivcha charufa, shechva zera b'shasish, shechva zera b'soita. There are 3 psukim that say the word shechva zera, which could seem that it means the end of the act, the zera, where by shivcha haruva we discussed. It also says it by ishesish, and also says it by siyata. Now, by ishesish, the shivcha haruva kedamara. We said you're right. There is a concept by shivcha haruva, the end of the act. The ishesish, it can't be that it means that if you're somebody with somebody's wife, you have to go all the way to the end. The beginning is also aser. But so why does it say shikva zera over there? Says the Gemara, prat l'mishamish meis. If his body is not ready, so it's not capable of being mazriya, then you're not chayiv. It has to be in a way that you could be mazriya. You don't have to be mazriya, but you could be mazriya, then you're chayiv eishesish. Says the Gemara, Nichalamando Omar, Mishamish Meis Barais Potter. Okay, that's good according to that mado. El Madova Chayev. Even if the aver is completely dead, you chayev. Michael Meimar. Elo Prat Mishamish Meisa. I mean, this is the Gemara has to talk about these things. There are people like that, unfortunately. If the Eishesish died, is she a Eishesish or not? It's a good question in La Halacha. What halacha does a dead person have? Now it could be for other things as well. So the dead person. Now we know that a man also the first Mishnah in Kiddushin, a man that dies severs the bond with the wife. But are they related? Not related? There's a lot of interesting questions. This kind of thing. But if a person is with a dead woman, he's not over an ishish. I would have a havamina. For Tumah, are you metamater, koyin, not? Considered, it's one of the 7 krovim, you metame yourself. Sheiroi. Oh, they're related. Oh, so you could, I mean, to me, it's like, I have to look into it a little bit. A dead person, mam's dead person. You cut a dead person, you chayiv. What is a dead person is nothing. It's muktzah on Shabbos. There's no value, nothing. Okay, I don't know. The siyata lamali. Look at the sanya. If, listen to this, a person tells his wife, don't have yichud with a certain man. I'm chayshid you. What's the shiur yichud? It doesn't have to be a full biyah. Even tchilas biyah, that's enough. You went in for a millisecond, that's it, you're siyata. So then why does the Torah say shechva zera? Why does it have to be the end of that? Says the Gemara, prat l'dover acher. I didn't look at this, and I don't know, I had a hargasha, that maybe once upon a time in the Gemara, the Gemara just had to say davar acher, and I think everybody understood. Maybe later on the Gemara had to explain what davar acher means. Sometimes the Gemara uses davar acher, and the Gemara doesn't want to say a word like talks about pig, pork, pig. The Gemara calls it davar acher. Different things. This is one of them. So, but now my davar acher in our maybe later generation, I'm just throwing this out. I have no idea. Could be mamash tuyot v'avalim. My davar acher or avsheish prat l'shekinila. If the husband was concerned that his wife, he knows the guy. The guy's not gonna be boil his wife regularly. But he thinks that the guy will do it unnaturally. So one pshat in Rashi is he doesn't even have to say it. He doesn't have to say those words. But that was his intent. The husband said, don't be misyachah with that man. Or another pshat in Rashi is he says specifically, don't be misyachah to him for unnatural. For shloike darko. So that's why the Torah has to say it. Omali Rava, why do I need a pasuk for that? Mishkeve ishiksiv. When it comes to a woman, shloike darka is mamish kedarka in every type of way. So why by side what I think is different? Elo Marava prat l'shekinelo derech evarim, that he told her or he thought that she's going to be with this man, not kedarka, not shaloi kedarka, but with limbs. B'mayin and Rashi, you want more pshat. Omalei abaya, pritzusa asur achmana. Through the limbs, bia in limbs is not bia. So the Torah doesn't have to tell me not to be a parot, act lewdly, whatever the word is, in a priestestic way. That I don't need a pasuk for. If it's not, it's not. If it's not an act, it's not an act. Just contact, skin on skin. So we have like this. We have neshika, skin and skin. Then we're going to have atara, which is the partial, but it's more than skin and skin. And then you have the whole thing. Then you have gemar bia. If you hold like the man Amar that hara, what's hara? Achnas satara. So we in where was it? Mundaline. There was 3.5 people. I did a little. We're talking about a bris and priya. So what's that Torah? That Torah is where the bris gets wider, the widest part of the bris. There's like a ridge there. So that's that Torah. So if you say that hara is going up to that part, Torah, great. But if you say it doesn't have to go in b'chlal, no insertion, it's just skin on skin, it's even less than that. So the Gemara says, so we're talking about, according to this man Amar, the husband either said or he thought, don't be with this guy for a varim, limbs. Maybe it has to do with what the husband wants. The husband says, you're also to me if you shake that guy's hand. Maybe she becomes a siyata on that. So maybe it has to do not with what is considered bia or not bia, but what the husband warns her on. And therefore, if he warns on a varim, even though it's not considered bia in any halacha, she still becomes a siyata. V'akapid. Kamash Milan, Shaita also. Vakapit, Kamash Milan. That has nothing to do with the husband. It has to be halachically considered bia, and that's it. Amar Shmuel. Hara zunashika. I hold. We have a machlekes here. How much is a ra? Ra, skin on skin. Mashal la'adam sheminiach etz boy al piv. Ifsha shaloi yitchoy kabasar. If a person puts his finger on his lips, he's going to push the skin in. L'chayr means a little bit more than that. It means a little bit of an insertion, not stam skin on skin. He also Rabbi Chana Amar Rabbi Yochanan Gemar Bia b'shivcha charufa zu hachnasas atara. Comes Rabbi Yochanan and says, when it comes to Gemar Bia, listen to this. This is very pashut. It sounds interesting. It's a good chapir. Rabbi Yochanan says the end of Bia is what? Atara. In other words, what's the beginning of Bia? If the end of Bia is just a little part of the bris, so what's the beginning of Bia? Must be that he agrees with Shmuel. That's just nashika. It's just skin and skin, contact. Mosav Rav Sheishes, Shichva Zera Inichayev Elo Al Bias Hamiruk. Mailav Miruk Gid. So Rav Sheishes says Shichva Zera. Shichva Zera means that the Zera came out. Therefore, that's the only way you're chayev on a bia that the Zera involved. Gid would mean the whole bris. Says Gemara, no, loy Miruk Atara. Yes, Zera came out, but just from the top part. Now it's interesting, if you look at Rashi, again, I didn't look into this too deeply, but it says over here, Atara, it's like 6 lines from the bottom. Rosh Gidi, the Atara is the top part of the bris. Ve'ena minagid ela basar. It's not part of the bris, it's only meat. That's what Rashi says here. Exactly what that means. He's learning that it's not part of the bris, it's ela basar. And that's what the Gemara means. There's a beginning of bia, which is any other basar, it's from the basar part, and then there's the rest of the bris, the gid part. Says the Gemara, don't worry, we're almost done with this. Ki asa Rav Dimi Omer Rabbi Yochanan. Now Rav Dimi comes and says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Ha'ara zu achnasas atar. What did we say a second ago? That according to Rabbi Yochanan, it's neshika. That Rabbi Yochanan agrees to Shmuel that it's just contact. And over here it says it's more than contact. We're like 8 lines from the bottom. No, this is insertion. It's not just contact. Rabbi Yochanan said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan differently. Says Gemara Amalu, Ayu Shakroy Ana Shakroy. Either I'm lying or he's lying. We both heard it from him. I say it this way, you say it that way. Rabbi Yochanan said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Hara zu achnas Torah. Adarabba, sorry. Adarabba Bar Chana Vadi Polik. Shkoyach. Could have read it mamish wrong. Adarabba, not Adarabba. On Rabba Bar Chana, they definitely argue. Adashmuel Milema de Polik. So the Gemara says something very interesting. The Gemara is going to explain a little bit better. That perhaps when Shmuel says Neshika and Ravin says Atara, they're saying the same exact thing. How's it possible? Because Shmuel is talking about the beginning of whatever that act is, and Ravin is talking about the end part. There's a beginning and end to that Neshika. Or Atchalas Bia, Hara, I mean. Says the Gemara, where am I? The Olam is mamish paying attention. It's gewaltig. So you see, the Gemara says it. It's from Neshika to Achnas Torah. So they don't argue. They're saying the same thing. He calls it Neshika because that's the beginning of this hara, and he says Achnas Torah, that's the end of hara. It's not just contact; it's a little bit more than contact. He says also in the name hara zu Achnas Torah. Gemar bia, and so what? So the beginning of bia is Achnas Torah. Gemar bia, the end of it is Gemar bia mamish, meaning zera. Mikan ve'elach. The interesting lashon, Mikan ve'elach means less, not more. Usually it means more than that. Daf nun vav amud aleph. Mikan ve'elach eino ela neshika upater aleh. Less than that, less than Achnas Torah, which is hara, is only called neshika, which he argues in Shmuel, and he says contact, just skin contact, is pater. Upligi, upalig, ad Shmuel. And therefore, because Shmuel says skin contact is considered hara and it's awesome. He says no. Have a wonderful day. Shkoyach coming out tomorrow, boysai. Last and final shiur, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, right here. Shkoyach gadol.